Hey there and welcome back. Today we're going to look at 3 must-know strumming patterns for worship guitar. Now for a lot of people, strumming might seem like one of the basic skills of our craft, but its role in shaping our playing is really profound. Now guitarists tend to focus a lot of time on learning new chords and scales and licks and riffs and whatever, but they don't really work on their rhythm skills nearly as much as they should. So with that said, today I want to show you 3 must-know strumming patterns that you can use to take your rhythm guitar playing to the next level. Now before we dive in, it's important to note that these aren't really for total beginners, and you should already have some familiarity with strumming and rhythm. Now having said that, if you are a total beginner and you want me to cover more basic patterns, go ahead and let me know in the comments. Alright, so let's go ahead and dig in. Now our first pattern has its roots in Latin music, and it's commonly known as what's known as the clave rhythm. Now the clave is simply a rhythmic pattern that's fundamental to Latin music, especially in styles like son or son and rumba and salsa and mambo, all those kind of Latin styles, and it's typically played using 2 wooden sticks called claves, from which the pattern of course gets its name. However, beyond the instrument, these wooden sticks, the term clave refers more widely to the foundational rhythm that drives many of these Afro-Cuban musical genres. Now the clave pattern has 2 primary forms, the son clave and the rumba clave. So what you're going to have is either a 3-2 son clave, which is 3 beats followed by 2, or you're going to have a 2-3 son clave, which is 2 beats followed by 3. And I'll show you how that works in a second. It's very prevalent in Cuban, son, and salsa music. So like I said, the son clave, you're either going to have a 3-2 or a 2-3. Now the 3-2 son clave sounds like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Alright, that's the 3-2. 3 beats followed by 2. Or you can get the 2-3, which is 2 beats followed by 3. It's basically a mirror image. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. That right there is the son clave. Now you also get obviously what's known as the rumba clave. Now the rumba clave is very similar to the son clave, but it's got a distinctive rhythmic variation used mainly in Cuban rumba. But I'm going to show you how I can actually use that in modern music. So the third beat, instead of that happening on beat 4, is going to happen on the and of 4. So the rumba clave will sound like this with a 3-2 variation. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Or if I do the 2-3, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And you can do some fun stuff with that when you get into anticipating the notes. Now, before we get to actually showing you these rhythms, I think it's good to look at the origins. Now, the clave's roots are based in West Africa, and of course that was carried over to the Americas through transatlantic slave trade. Now, when the African slaves were brought to the Caribbean, particularly Cuba, they brought with them various rhythmic traditions which then merged with the musical practices already present on the island. And then over time, these combined influences resulted in the creation of unique Afro-Cuban genres, which is where that clave rhythm became really foundational. So how does that link to rock and pop music and of course worship? Well, the migration of the Afro-Cuban rhythms into popular Western music, that really began in the early to mid 20th century, especially during that era of the big bands and that mambo craze of the 1940s and 50s in the US. And particularly that there was a rhythm called the Bo Diddley beat, which was named after an artist called Bo Diddley, and that's easily one of the most recognizable manifestations of the clave in rock music. Now the Bo Diddley rhythm is essentially a 3-2 clave. Let's go ahead and check it out quick. You'll probably recognize this. And you can hear that clave, which is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So now you can see how that Afro-Cuban rhythm has made its way into Western music. Now these Afro-Cuban rhythms also found their way into jazz, which of course in turn influenced rock, and that of course influenced modern pop and modern rock and current worship kind of genres. Now over the time, elements of this Afro-Cuban music, they really became embedded in the fabric of rock and pop, and of course bands and artists from the Rolling Stones to the Clash, they've all employed these specific rhythms that can be traced back to the clave. And of course, this also led to other genres where the Afro-Cuban rhythms have also been influential in the development of, say, R&B or funk and hip-hop. Now, of course, elements of all these different styles have found its way into modern worship. Now, in today's globalized world, it's easier than ever to spot the influence of that clave rhythm across a broad spectrum of musical genres, and the simplicity and the versatility of the clave makes it a potent tool for driving rhythms. So here's a strumming part that you can use in praise and worship that really uses elements of this clave rhythm. Let's go and check that out right now. As you can see, we just use that same bow diddly rhythm here, but in a bit more of a modern approach. I played the Sun clave as a 3-2, and then I reversed it as a 2-3, and I did the same with the rumba clave. Now what you can also do is, you've probably heard this style of playing like a... And as you can see, that's more of a downstrokes 8th note pattern, and then I'm putting those accents on where you would find that clave rhythm. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. So let me go ahead and play that for you now with the track, and then just remember, you are free to experiment with this. You don't have to play the clave in its pure form like I'm doing for teaching purposes now, but if you want to vary stuff, you can, but this is going to be the basis for a really solid rhythm that people have been listening to for many, many years. There, I just experimented with that a little bit, but you can see that we had the clave there as the main thrust behind the rhythm, and then you're free to experiment with it in any way you see fit. Now my second go-to rhythm is a fun syncopated 16th note pattern. Now syncopation is something that you definitely want to use in your playing. So this strumming pattern, it's got rests on beats 2 and 3. Because of that, it introduces the sense of syncopation. Now, syncopation is essentially the emphasis of typically unemphasized beats or the off beats, which in the case of this rhythm is the of beat 1, the E of beat 3, and then of course the of beat 4. That's really going to create a rhythmic surprise or a twist that adds an intriguing element for the listener and really making them anticipate that very next note. Let's go ahead and play that right now. Right, now this is just your typical kind of an acoustic rhythmic pattern, but as you can see, it works pretty well on the electric as well. You can just choose your voicings accordingly. First, I just played a power chord, and then a power chord on C. Then I had this power chord on the G, and the same one on C. So what's going on with this rhythm, it's basically down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, down, up. Now that final down, up, it's up to you when you want to play or not play that. So what's going on here is basically I'm playing down, miss, miss, up, miss, miss, down, miss, miss, up, miss, miss. So that gives that syncopated feel because we are highlighting the of beat 1 and then the E of beat 2, or actually beat 3, and then the of beat 4 again. So it's just different notes that we are highlighting over there, and as a result, you get this syncopated rhythm. So if I play that up to tempo, I'll first just voice it out and then I'll play it, which is basically down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down. If you play acoustic, that's a nice open rhythm to use, even though it's based in 16th notes along with some syncopation, but this can work just as well on an electric guitar. So let's go ahead and look at why this rhythm works so well. So as you probably heard, that rhythm has like a forward moving momentum built into it by placing those two downstrokes in quick succession at the end, the down, miss, down, up, right? And that really has a sense of propulsion, and that can serve as a driving force in a song, making it particularly effective for chorus sections or any part of the song where you just want to take things up a notch. Now, despite the fact that it's using a 16th note syncopation, this pattern is relatively simple, making it both accessible for you as a player as well as the listeners. The rests, or those misses like I've shown you, they give the song, and the rhythm rather, some breathing space, just to allow for the music's melodic and harmonic content to shine through. Now that balance between rhythmic complexity of the fact that it's 16th notes and syncopation, along with the musical space, that makes it the perfect rhythm for modern worship music, where the message and the emotion of the song is of course most important. Now thankfully this rhythm is also versatile. While it's rooted in that 16th note strumming pattern, it can also be adapted to various tempos and fills. At slower tempos, it's going to provide more of a contemplative, almost meditative kind of a groove, while at faster tempos, that's going to be the backbone of, say, an upbeat or joyous praise song. Now, what's interesting is you can also use this rhythm from a lead guitar perspective, so you don't always have to play chords like I've just done. So let me go ahead and trigger the track once more and then show you how I can use single notes with that exact rhythm to create some interesting sounding parts. You don't just have to use it as chords, you can also use it on single notes. Now, modern music, especially genres like pop and rock and indie music, these often play with a rhythmic elements that break away from, say, some traditional strumming patterns, and by introducing some of the unexpected rests and strums like we do in this pattern, it brings a contemporary feel to music. And specifically, worship music is all about connecting emotionally, right? So this rhythm with that unique blend of rests and strums can invoke a wide range of feelings, from anticipation and excitement all the way to introspection and reflection. So depending on the song and the tempo and the context how it's used, it can cover that wide range of emotions. So in summary, this strumming pattern is a combination of syncopation, simplicity, drive, and then versatility, which makes it a powerful tool for modern worship guitarists. It really connects with the musical language of today while providing a rhythmic foundation that can elevate the emotional impact of a song. Now, this next rhythm has to be one of my favorite rhythmic patterns. So let me go ahead and play it for you real quick. So as you can see, this pattern has got down, up, down. We have that 4 times. So down, up, down, 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 up. Now, if I were to group that rhythm, then you can see that 3 against 4 polyrhythm, because I have 4 down, up, down groupings. So I follow that off each other. So 1, 2, 3, 4, down, up, down, up. So what's happening there is we have 4 down, up, down groupings to create one rhythm, while the entire 16th note strumming pattern has that feel of 4. So it's 4 down, up, downs, followed by 1 down, up, and that gives me that 16th note pattern. And this kind of 3 against 4 rhythm, it can really create an engaging and rolling feel that's both captivating and even a little off kilter for listeners. So here's why this rhythm can be so compelling. First of all, if you look at the percussive nature of this, the polyrhythms, they're going to introduce that tension, like we said, the overlapping meters, but then when they resolve, it gives this satisfying sense of release. And this alternating tension and release that can invoke a strong emotional reaction for the listener, and that's really perfect for genres like worship. Now, polyrhythms by their very nature is a little bit more intricate than a standard rhythm. Now, this intricacy can weave some complex sonic landscapes that can add some depth to a musical piece, and it's really interesting for the listeners once they kind of catch up on what's happening. So the 3 against 4 feel in particular has this rolling or cyclical movement to it. It never seems to stop, but instead it has that continuous flow, just pushing the music forward the whole time. And that can be great for songs that aim to create a sense of journey or progression. Now, polyrhythms, they are really staples in many traditional forms of music around the world, especially in African music, and we've already spoken about the rich heritage we have there with the Clave rhythm. Now, when you incorporate some of those older rhythms into a modern style of music, it can really make your playing feel both ancient and modern, and that combination is pretty exciting. Now, despite its complexity, the rhythm is still grounded in that familiar down-up strumming motion, and this means that while it can introduce some complexity and rhythmic interest to a piece, it's going to remain approachable and adaptable for a wide range of worship settings. And then given that tension and the interplay of the rhythms in a polyrhythmic pattern, there's the opportunity to convey something that is a little bit different and has got a different emotion and feel for it. So this rhythm, for instance, could be both like a celebratory rhythm, or it can be very contemplative depending on the musical context and specifically the tempo. So in essence, this rhythm with its polyrhythmic undertones can be a fantastic addition to a worship guitarist toolkit. It's going to offer a unique way to convey emotion, to drive a song forward, and to introduce some rhythmic depth. Now, as with any advanced rhythm, the key lies in its mastery and appropriate application, and when used correctly, it can really take a song to new heights. So there you have it, 3 of my go-to rhythmic patterns. Now, if you're looking for some cool voicings to use alongside these rhythms, go ahead and check out my guitar triad transformations video over here. so you can get some fresh voicings in a matter of minutes.